I have declared that this will be my summer of style, a summer where I intentionally focus on my self expression, where I am meticulous about the details of my surroundings and how I serve food on a plate, how I create an ambiance that is uplifting and aligned with my future. I want to really spend time deep in the topic of style and what that does for a woman's life and how it can elevate her, how it can add to her day, how it can affect the people around her. And for this reason, I'm doing something I have never done before. I am hosting a private podcast inspired by the iconic Diana Vreeland herself, who had a column in Harper's Bazaar that ran for over a decade called Why Don't You? This private podcast is going to inspire you to overcome your limitations around style, help you to step into your authentic style, and just allow you to have your own style renaissance. So, if you're interested in perhaps making this your summer of style, or if style is something that has always seemed overwhelming to you, you have a lot of negative thoughts about your style, or you just want to add a little sparkle to your week, then why don't you join us for this private podcast? All you have to do is go to schoolofselfimage.com/why, and we will be dropping episodes every Monday for 12 weeks. So head on over to schoolofselfimage.com/why. And now let's dive into this very fun interview that I did on stylish careers.
Welcome to the School of Self-Image, where
I have artwork from wall to ceiling.
So would you say the bold and vibrant? How would you
describe? Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today is a very special one because if you listen to last week's podcast, I talked about how I want this to be my summer of style. And to me, style isn't just about what you wear, it's how you express yourself in all areas of your life. And one of the areas that I'm very passionate about, it won't be surprising to you all, is my business. And so when I thought about Summer of Style and my business, this idea baby was born that I wanted to do a podcast episode on stylish careers. And I knew that I wanted to bring some other voices into the mix. And the moment I thought about doing this, there were two people that immediately came to mind, and they happened to be family. It's my first and second cousin, Carmin and Sherry Black. And so I am so excited to have you all on because I rarely have guests on the podcast, and you two could not be more perfect for this topic. So thank you for being here.
We're honored. We're so excited.
We're so honored. We're so proud of you. Thank you for having us.
You are so welcome. So I want to start this out with Sherry. Sherry's my first cousin. So her dad and my dad were brothers. And I don't know if you know this, but you have had such a big impact on my style. I'll never forget. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. You came to visit. And you were one of those family members that I didn't get to see that often because you lived in Germany. And I remember you walking through the door, and it was like an issue of Vogue had just walked into our little trailer in the middle of nowhere. It was like chic, sophistication, edgy, cool. I had never met anyone like you in real life. I'd seen people like you in magazines. And from that day, I was like, you showed me something that I deeply, deeply wanted for myself. And so I'm really curious. I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but where did that come from for you? Where did this style that you've always had ever since I've known you, like, where did that come from?
You know, that's a good question. I can remember even at the age of 4, when I played with Barbies or dolls or anything, the number one thing I wanted to do was just decorate their home. And so as I got older, it was my grandmother on my mom's side who was extremely worldly. She had traveled the world. Her bedroom was was grass green bamboo with black striae. The walls were palm leaves. The drapes were matching the wallpaper. The carpet was shag. Her bathroom was pink with shag carpet in the bathroom, all pink tiles, dressing table, a phone, her jewelry box. And I used to sit in that bathroom and I mean, for hours, I just wanted to be by myself. And I would look in the mirror and I'd try on all her jewelry. And because in our church, the way we were raised, you and I both know, jewelry was a sin, quote unquote.
And you should show your wrist now.
Oh, yes, I do love jewelry, but and even like being glamorous or beautiful was like frowned upon because the more humble you looked, the more godly you were. So
and look at us now.
it was a battle. Yes, 100% completely different. But here's the one thing. When we moved to Europe, I was exposed to a completely different culture. And fashion was much more, it was like simple, but really cool. It's like people they live differently than we did in the US. So it just, I mean, I can remember at 16, my mom was getting her hair done in a village close to where our house was. And I used to nanny for actually Fred Francis, who was an NBC News reporter at the time covering the Afghanistan war. And I was his nanny. So he used to pay me $100 a day. And at 16, I won't say what year, but it was a while back. I would just save my money. Like that was a lot for a young girl.
That would be a lot today. So that was a lot.
Honey, yes. Honey. And so I can remember my mom was having her hair done at this salon. And I said, well, I'm just going to go out and shop a little. Like, I'm going to go check out the village. I found these cream thigh-high boots with about a 4-inch heel. I'm 16 now. And I think these will look so fabulous. Like, I'm going to look so glamorous because European style was so ahead, like with Paris and Milan. Italy, Milan. Europe was like, they were fashion for much more progressive than America was. At the time, we were so conservative and Americana. And I remember I bought those boots and I was so scared to show my mom. I was like, but I just knew I was like, they were going to be a hit at school. So I had my thigh-high boots. This was back in the late 70s. And I knew then I am a fashion girl. And whenever I went back home.
Did you wear them to school?
Oh, yes.
Did you wear them with like longer skirts?
No, I wore them with jeans. Back then, the jeans were so tight.
You could fit them inside.
Girl, I had to lay on the bed, suck in so hard, and I'd have to get my mom to come and pull me up.
Yeah.
Because there was no bending.
Yeah.
And the only way I stretched out my jeans was finally I'd put my clogs on because I wore a lot of bell bottoms. They were skin tight. They looked so good. I was probably 50 pounds lighter. Anyway, they looked so good. And then I would take my jeans and stuff them inside my thigh-high boots and off I went to school. And then I'd go pass out my Bibles to let everyone know about Jesus. But I was just like a progressive Jesus lover. Like, I just love fashion and I love fashion and style. And I don't know, it just played a huge part in my life. So I knew at a young age that that's what I wanted to do. And my very first job, besides being a nanny, was in fashion. And I knew that if I didn't go into interior design, I definitely would have gone into fashion.
Oh, 100%. 100%. You just made me think about a story. I went through grandma's stuff in her trailer. You remember that trailer?
No.
Right behind our trailer. And she had this pair of like, I don't know where they came from because she probably got them at a flea market because I never saw her wear them. But they were a pair of burnt orange over the knee boots with like a thick wooden heel.
No.
It was like a find, and I decided I was going to wear these to school. I'd never seen anything like it before because I wanted to be edgy. Like there was something in me,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how to put the whole look together, right?
Yeah.
The boots were cool, but the rest of the outfit was terrible. And I do remember walking into that school and people just bursting out in laughter.
Oh, yeah.
At this outfit, it was a complete style fail, but I always say you have to be willing to experiment and fail at things in order to figure it out. And so
Well,
along
let me
those-
tell you, along those lines, when I moved back from Europe, you were actually my flower girl. So this is like so
Mhm.
epic that I'm sitting here with you today, like having a conversation with you on your podcast. What was sad in a way when I came back, especially with church, because that was our whole life growing up was.
Because your dad was a minister. You'd have to
Well, he
explain.
became a minister later. After
Right.
we moved to Germany, he became a minister, but he was always very involved in church. And when I came back, it was very disheartening because people in our church in America was so much more conservative. And right after I was in college, I ended up getting married at a very young age at 18, which was
Mhm.
crazy. And my dad even said that day, I'll take you away right now. You don't have to do this.
Mm.
We were in that horse and carriage going around the mansion. And I looked at my dad and I said, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm happy. I know what I'm doing. I want to have 2 children with this man and then we're done. But I knew, like, then we started pastoring a church. And the very first week we were there, because I wore lipstick and had jewelry on, and the members of the church told me, you're tearing this church apart.
Mm.
And I said, I can't help but I'm just me. It's like my spirit and my soul was so innocent. I just love fashion. I'm sorry. My dad said to me one time at my brother's store in Raleigh, he took me outside and he said, Sherry, he goes, if you go into a room and you're supposed to wear red, and everybody knows they're supposed to wear red, and they all wear red when they come to this room, but you walk in and you're in blue. He goes, it just messes up everything. Can't you just tone it down a little bit? And I wasn't even flamboyant. I was just fashionable, because I worked in high fashion at the time. And when Norma Kamali just started, Ralph Lauren was just starting. It's like Armani. It's like, it was just, I was at the cusp of really high fashion, which was really cool. And that's what I worked in. And I looked at my dad and I asked him, I said, well, look around, because we were at the back side of my brother's store and behind it was a nursery for flowers and plants. And God spoke to me right then, and I turned my dad around and I said, Dad, I said, turn around. I said, look at this nursery around here. I said, what do you see? He said, I see plants. I see trees. I see flowers. I said, what else do you see? Because I see red. I see yellow. I see blue. And I said, well, I said, God wanted me to tell you something. I said, do you know what he wanted me to tell you? And he goes, yes. And he was like, looked at me with intent. And I said, God told me to tell you that I made Sherry just the way she is, and I need you to leave her alone.
Preach.
He burst out crying, and he looked at me in my eyes, and he knew my heart was pure, but I just love fashion.
But my outfits weren't.
I know, but God made me this way. I'm like, and I mean, he apologized to me, and it was like from that point on, there was a completely different respect, because our fashion doesn't dictate who we really are, but it does
reflect.
It reflects on how you feel about yourself.
100%.
It reflects on what others, think of you a lot of times. Not that you have to, make others think you're wealthy or you're, whatever. I think when you're just yourself, it's like so cool because who all wants to be the same, you know?
The
Anyway,
church that we grew up
the
in.
church we grew up in. Exactly.
You know what's interesting though? Because I do remember you walking in when I saw you, when I hadn't seen you for a long time, and you to me were flamboyant. You were so different than what I was used to seeing in the church and in
Yeah.
that small town I grew up in. So I
Yeah.
could see how, you know, when people aren't accustomed to something different, and we see it in the world right now, it can feel very threatening.
Yeah.
It's like this person's so different. But if we just take the time to get to know people and to understand, there's so much to learn. And thank goodness when you walked in, I didn't reject that. I'm like, oh, I want a little bit of what she's having.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's interesting because at your dad's birthday recently, so I guess, or maybe that was almost a year ago now, probably. Wasn't
Oh
it
no, December. Yeah, it was
December? Yeah.
6 months ago.
You know, it's interesting because when we showed up that night for the birthday, we certainly, the goal was not to be progressive. The goal was just to look pretty because we're celebrating your dad and we love him. And so we want to try a little bit. And as we walked in, there was that feeling of, uh-oh, everyone in here is so similar and we're not like them. And that unspoken thing is happening where they're looking at us and they're trying to be kind, but it's like, I wouldn't say there was a judgmentalism.
No, I actually thought I just had never seen so much teased hair in my life.
It was amazing.
It was the hairspray he was making Jesus very proud.
Yes, higher than hair.
But everybody was super nice.
So
like
nice.
It was super nice.
But it does take a level, I think, of confidence to be part of sort of the masses and approach the intruders with a level of curiosity, which you've always had, and you're so confident. So it's no surprise that the two of you would have naturally, like, you know, magnetized to one another. Yeah. But basically what you're saying, I just recently experienced, and I was like, I just remember thinking that night, oh my God, I'm so different. But until I got here, I didn't feel any different.
Right.
I didn't think I was any different.
I feel like that every time I go back home.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you do it enough, it just becomes part of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I want to talk about you, Carmen, and then we'll come back to you, Sherry, because I want to talk about your career. So, of course, I think you are super stylish, and how can you not be? Look at your mother. Like we were talking about before the podcast, like how her and her mom have such similar styles. And I've always loved I think if I were to describe your style, it's like effortlessly chic. You just seem to have this effortlessness, but always look super cool, whether it's a vintage outfit you're wearing, your hair, you just always look so laid back and fresh, like you didn't even try. It's the kind of style that makes a lot of women be like, oh, I want to know how to do that.
And it's so easy.
That's really
makes it look so easy. But when I think of you, I think about your career. I don't know of anyone that has inspired me as much as you have with where you started. And I cannot remember. I was trying to remember, was it $200 or $500 that you started with?
$200 that I borrowed from her.
I just gave it as a joke. Like, go start something.
Yeah. Christian, my brother and I, when we started our first brand, we had I am talking no
Did
money.
You want to buy mugs from Salvation Army?
No, even worse. We went to the dollar store and I knew, here's what's interesting. I knew that way back then, this is 15 years ago, I knew that one day I wanted to design home goods. I knew that was going to, and it's now starting to perpetuate and it's starting to become a real thing. But, and we can talk about that and where that's headed, but I just knew that somehow. So my first brand, whenever you purchased a product, 7 meals were given to people in need. And so in my mind, it made sense. Like, oh, when you're in your kitchen or when you're drinking your morning cup of coffee or when you're eating out of a bowl, you should make that connection. Oh, this product also fed someone in need. I'm eating. This is also feeding someone. It's like I wanted that very literal connection. I didn't know artisans. I didn't know manufacturing. I knew nothing. And so we went literally with the $200 that she loaned us to the dollar store and bought mugs and bowls and tea towels and anything that we felt look. What, do I have something there?
No,
okay.
I was literally scratching my neck.
And anything that we felt looked cool enough where you would never think it was from the dollar store. We took it home and we basically would like stamp or spray paint or just manipulate these products however we could and then sell them as our brand. And we would tell people, when you buy this, this is so cool. Every product that you purchase is giving 7 meals to a kid in need. Think about that tomorrow morning when you're drinking your coffee out of this cup. And these things sold like hotcakes. Because people, Tom's Shoes was brand new. I had just worked at Tom's, so I would tell people that I just worked at Tom's Shoes.
Well, tell them what you did for Tom's.
I worked as a public speaker, so I wasn't even in their design department or anything like that. But my job was to go to high schools and colleges, but I also went to Google and I would speak about this idea of combining philanthropy and business. I was speaking, of course, on behalf of Tom's, and I'd say like, for every pair of Tom's that you purchase, we will get a new pair of Tom's is given to a child in need, 1 for 1. And we had this like spiel we would sort of replay over and over. And so I took that learning, turned it into my own brand, but like had no idea what I was doing, had no money.
And how did the bullet come into play for the bullet necklace?
So we probably a year later, we designed this necklace we called our Fighting Hunger necklace. And one day I was nobody in the company was paid at this point. So we were all working for free, just volunteer. And so it was myself, my brother, and probably like 5 unpaid interns. They would just work for us in between their jobs. None of us were married. None of us had kids. So we were just like young kids basically doing something. And we were at my apartment, and my apartment was in this old farm, beautifully restored, but this old farmhouse where the top of the farmhouse was my apartment. The bottom was this elderly lady. And we were separated by 2 different sets of stairs that led into our apartments. And somebody was knocking on the door and I was doing something. So I asked one of the interns, hey, will you run downstairs? Because you had to go like, through the living room, down the stairs, around. We run downstairs and answer the door and see what that is. They come back upstairs and they're like, hey, this is really weird, but somebody said that they go to your church and they heard that you want to start making jewelry for your brand. They said what you should do is make jewelry out of brass, but brass is expensive. So take these recycled bullet casings, melt them down and make your jewelry. And I was like, what? Somebody from my church, who to this day I have no idea who dropped a box of used bullet casings off at my house. Like, how weird is that? So I was like, that is the weirdest thing I have ever heard. And I'm not a jewelry designer and I don't know how to make jewelry. And I certainly don't know how to melt casings down to cast jewelry out of brass. So we shuffled this box around and all of a sudden I was like, you guys. And they're like, what? I'm like, guys, look in this box. So now I know, and I don't own a gun. And I, we could talk about gun legislation all day long because now I know a lot about it. But at the time I knew nothing about it. And when you have bullet casings, a 45 millimeter, a 40 millimeter, and a 9 millimeter casing, oddly enough, when they're stacked together, they fit together perfectly and one fits inside of the other. And so they naturally inside this box were stacking and creating this sort of 3-tiered shape. And I said, you guys, look at this. And they were like, what? I'm like, what do bullets do? And they were like, kill people. I'm like, no, bullets fight. And I was like, guys, what do we do? They're like, we sell stuff. I'm like, no, guys, we fight hunger. Bullets fight. We fight hunger. Let's call it our Fighting Hunger necklace. I was like, we'll string it on a chain. We'll sell them and we'll tell people when you buy one, you give 7 meals to feed a kid. And this is your symbol of fighting hunger. I was like, a negative turned into a positive. It's brilliant. And everyone was like, Carmen, that's so stupid. So we made a few, took them to a local retail store now we were at this point in our careers where if we sold 10 of anything per month, it was like a really good month. We're like, we're rich. We made $200 this month. So I took these necklaces. A girlfriend of mine owned a shop. She agreed to sell them. She calls me like that Friday. She's like, Carmen, 10 of your necklaces sold. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, let me bring you more. And so 10 the next week, 10 the next week, and on and on. And these things just sold like hotcakes. They went viral, went nationwide in Nordstrom for years and years.
Stars started wearing them, musicians.
Yeah.
You started going to
Let's just like think about this.
Yeah.
Because, I coach a lot of women who are entrepreneurs, they're starting their businesses, and I tell them all of the time, you have to fail so much to finally succeed.
Yes.
And I think about all of the failures that you've had, because I know you, and I know you've had failure after failure, but what was it within you that made you not give up?
I think what it is that I just always see failure as a stepping stone. And it's sort of like gleaning crops. It's like whether or not, the crops produced a bountiful harvest, we gleaned something, we gained something. And in business, it's like, wait a sec, but I learned so much. Now I'm going to take that learning and all I'm going to do is be stronger with the next thing. Okay, I failed at that. I learned something. I'm going to take all those learnings, and it's sort of like you just recycle everything that you learn until I think eventually what happens, you never arrive. Like people that say they've arrived, like they're crazy. But what happens is if you keep at it, it just starts getting easier. You keep failing. You never stop failing. You're going to fail at new things all the time. But the things that you failed at before, now you're not going to fail at again. And when you do that enough times, it starts kind of like clicking. And that's where I'm finally, after 16 years, I'm at that click point where I'm like, I know how to do this pretty efficiently because I failed so many times.
But you have to try.
Yeah.
If he had not tried, I knew they were never going to make money off of mugs from the dollar store. But I knew that if you kept plugging at it and they started seeing a profit, so if they doubled their profit, then doubled that profit, and then they were able to do a little bit more, and then they end up with their own space. They end up with their own products. The products sell in 800 different stores around the world.
We've sold to, thousands of retailers, but I think our biggest retailer ever probably was Nordstrom, simply because they put us nationwide.
Yeah.
And we've also worked with Target, Wegmans, Whole Foods,
and then boutiques all around the world in Japan,
Japan's, Panama,
huge.
Italy, France. Everywhere, but then I actually closed that business and it went down in a blazing flame of glory. And really it was a fault of my own why it went down. I think I can either go into that or not, but I learned a lot from that, and now I've risen back up, and I'm just.
But let's talk about the rise, because I know about that failure, and it was a mistake that any of us could have made, right? Like, and we can talk about it or not, but in doing business, you do a lot of things that you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the people around you with the knowledge, and mistakes get made, right? And that's how you learn. But I think about your rising from that. And like how you had to go through that to be where you are now. And so why don't you tell the audience like what you're doing now, which is amazing.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. It's so interesting because I do want to kind of hit on the failure a little bit, just so that, I like to talk about it, not to be self-deprecating, but because I just want people to feel that good or bad, no matter the choices that you make, I just feel like every choice will lead you to a good place. I just really feel like that. Everything always works out for your good.
Even if you can't see it.
Even if you can't, even if it's your own doing, even if it's the stupidest thing you've ever done and you even knew better, it still always lands you in a good place. Yeah. So, at Half United, we had been selling jewelry that we had manufactured by a US-based manufacturer. During COVID, they outsourced our manufacturing to China without asking us. And when we got those products in and we're selling it to hundreds of very large retailers, Free People even being one of them, the stuff was tarnishing on the shelves. So I called the manufacturer, who I loved these people. Like, we would joke around and hang out, and like, I would say like, hey, when I come to Rhode Island to visit you guys, I'm going to stay at your houses, and was not kidding, you know. And basically I said, guys, this stuff is tarnishing. We're having cancellations left and right. What is going on? You guys need to fix this. Well, they tried a few times. And you know, we appreciated that, but ultimately they basically came to the conclusion, look, fixing this problem is going to be more expensive than it's worth. So we're not fixing it. And actually, we're suing you for non-payment. And I'm like, guys, if somebody goes to a sandwich shop, and they order a sandwich and you give them moldy bread, they can't say, well, just because you gave me a sandwich, I'll pay you for my sandwich. Like, no, this bread has mold on it. I can't. Yeah. I'm not paying for, like, I can't pay for this. It's not fair. Sorry, I gave you a sandwich. You didn't ask what kind of sandwich. So it was that sort of circumstance. So they sued us, and we fought it, and we tried and tried and tried. And ultimately it just took us out. We just could not fight any longer. Because the dent they placed on our cash flow was very significant. I won't get into that, but here's the point. On paper, that's why we failed, is because of manufacturing defect. The truth of why we failed is because I believe my own, and this went back years prior, my own, how do I say this? What's the word? Maniacal drive to succeed. And I had decided years prior, no matter what this company does, we are going to rise to the top. If our giving 7 meals per product sold has to suffer, we'll give later. We'll give when we have the money to give. And so what I started doing was making a justification for growth at the expense of our mission. And I was like, we're going to land and we would land massive orders. Like, we're going to get paid $400,000 for this order. And instead of giving money to feed kids in need, we're going to hire that fancy marketing firm or that COO, and they're going to help us grow so that we can give even more later. That's what I know was the real truth about our failure. The lawsuit was just a reflection of what had started happening in my heart. So here's why I'm so glad I failed, because it is like such a saving grace. And so for anybody out there that's like, wait, that's me, girl, let that man, whoever, let it happen. Because what happened was I had to really look at myself in the mirror and come to terms with God and say, I did that. I know that everyone can blame the lawsuit. Everyone can give me a pat on the back for trying so hard. I know that it was me that had gotten off track long before this happened. And here's what's so beautiful. Thank you, God. I will never do that again. So about a year before we closed, and I saw the writing on the wall and we were just sliding down and down, I was approached by Magnolia, and the team from Joanna Gaines said, we really love your handbags. We really want to partner together. How can we make this work? And I said, listen, I didn't tell them this at the time.
But they saw you at market.
Yeah, I met them at a trade show when when the slippery slope was just sliding down and down. I met them at a trade show, and they said, hey, we really love your style. We really love your products. We'd love to work together. And I was like, this is amazing. So we started talking. It became a more serious thing. I started developing samples for them. And because I could see the writing on the wall of my first brand ending, I said to them, listen, if we launch together, I think what I'm going to do is start a new brand. I'm going to call it Carmin Black, just like any designer brand. And I want you guys to launch us under that label. Can you do that? And they said yes. And so I knew even before the end of Half United, I was like, God, I see what you're doing. I see this redemption story playing out. I see how I've got to lose it all. I never should have had to lose it all. No. I know I have to lose it all, but thank you I see that you're not going to let me lose everything. You're going to bring me back. And I promise if you give me this chance, I will never go back to that person I had become. And so the chance was given, and now we're working on our third collection with them. They're reviewing samples literally this week as we speak. And then I designed a hairband product that I think is now going to be in 2,000 CVS stores. And so that's launching this fall. And I'm like,
We're going to send you some.
yeah, I'm like,
yes, I want all the things.
yeah, I'm just like, and I think after this, home goods may be in our future, gainfully employing people, I'm still very passionate about. So I'll be in Kenya in August. I'm working on ways. I see little dots connecting to make that possible. My mom, it's a good timing with her, and I see an interest in us working together. So there's just so much redemption happening, and I'm just so thankful. And, again, just going back to what we want to tell people listening, it doesn't matter who caused the riff in your life, the failure, the setback. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was you or if it was other people or things out of your control, the weather, whatever. It always can be used for your good. So just never give up. Never
Yeah.
give up.
Well, that's the trait I've always seen in you.
Yeah.
And that's where the thing that you so beautifully shared, and thank you for your vulnerability, but the thing that you have attributed to the failure can also be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That drive, that ambition. And I also believe life is about contrast. And sometimes we have to experience the pain of looking at ourselves in the mirror so that we know, okay, I need to course correct. I mean, I've been talking about it all year because I've been out of what I call my sweet spot. And for you, I know your sweet spot is when you are channeling that ambition and combining your love of philanthropy with design, with business, like that's your sweet spot, right? And when you started to negate one for the other, you started to feel it. And then the results were shown to you and you're like, I got to course correct. And I think that's part of business. I think no one is on a straight path, always doing it perfectly. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to screw it up. And I love this conversation because I'm sure people listening are like, yep, that's where I am now. And I love how you framed it. Like, use it for you.
Absolutely.
Use it for you.
That's one thing I think I learned from some of my greatest mentors, that they, some men, some women, but they have all had much more elaborate and successful careers than I have achieved yet. But they taught me, like, in business and probably in life too, every little molecule is there to teach you something. Use everything to its maximum impact. Everything, anything. Whether it's a hard lesson, whether it's a networking opportunity, like anything.
Like, explain that.
So it's like, I think in the case of what we're talking about here is failure. Like, instead of looking at, many people would have looked at what I was facing. I mean, it was really tough. We're talking lawyers involved. I hate anything dramatic and messy. Like, I hate drama. I hate gossip. Like, if you want to gossip with someone, like, do not call me. I'm like so bored with that kind of stuff. I'm like, no way. And so anything messy and toxic and challenging, I just run from. Well, that's all that was filling my life for about a span of a year or a year and a half. And so if you are a person like me and you're facing all of these challenges, I mean, employees quitting left and right, and people that said they would never leaving, and the bills and the vendors and the complaints. And I mean, it was a lot. And I think other people may have just thrown their hands up and buried their head in the sand and said, forget it. I kept saying, no, I know that this is teaching me what not to do. I know this is teaching me. I know I caused this. I know I can do better than this. I know I'm going to remember this next time. And it's like, just squeeze the life out of anything you're facing for your good.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Let's talk about you, Sherry.
Oh, what do you want to know?
Well, tell the audience what you do, and then we want to hear about your failures.
Oh,
Because stylish careers come with a lot of failures.
So many. Well, I'm an interior designer and furniture designer. I've been designing for 20 plus years. Yeah. I've done projects around the world. But one thing I've never advertised, I have the worst website. I have the worst Instagram, or not, I won't say the worst, but it's not like Kelly Wearsler, it's not where every day there's 4 different posts or whatever where you can see what I've done. But I have had the most amazing jobs in my that any designer could ever hope for. And there was a time where when okay, so I'll back up a little bit. So I first started my design career in Hawaii when we lived there. And the day that we left, we did a drapery install, and then my ex-husband had made a decision that we were now going to move to Alaska. So I went from Hawaii to Alaska. Now, at the time in Hawaii, I worked part-time, well, full-time, but only for a couple of years for Gucci. And I started my interior design business at the same time I was working for Gucci. So I had good clients to have as my first clients because of where I worked, 4 days a week. Anyway, we ended up moving to Alaska. I went, oh my God, my interior design career is gone. Like, it is down the tubes. This is like northern exposure. I'm like, I'm going to Hooterville. Like, this is going to be as bad as Chadburn. So we went to Alaska.
You better watch out, because you never know who's.
I love Alaska. Like, there's a lot of money in Alaska. I love Chadburn. Don't get me wrong.
They're talking about my hometown, in case anyone is wondering.
Yeah, I do get scared when I drive there, but it's okay. Anyway, yeah, I'm just joking. I won't.
It's okay to be scared.
Yes. Anyway, in Alaska, I can remember I was like, how am I going to get a job? Because we moved there because Randy agreed to take a church. And this church was, they paid the maximum of amount of money that a pastor could make. But Alaska is actually very expensive. So I didn't want to just stay home in the dark all the time. So I got a job. And so the people at the church took me to the employment office, which I'd never been to in my life. I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, I should not have to go through the employment office to get a job. So I was humbled on that, and I did. And they go, and I'm not lying. The woman goes, do not move. She looks around. She goes, do not move. We don't get people like you very often. I went, oh my God, where are we? Like,
you should have said, I will not move.
I have $20. Make it quick, girl. Anyway, they come back. They offer me. I end up getting a job with Sears Corporation. Sears at the time was changing the look of Sears. And I worked with designers and architects from California. We bought this building that had been an ice skating rink, a movie theater, and a bowling alley, because the existing Sears store was a little house that sold snow blowers, shovels, picks, rock salt, canoes. Now I'm coming from Gucci to this store that was selling Carhartts. Okay. Carhartts, Levi's, and some snow blowers. And I was in a Gucci skirt, a mink coat, a black turtleneck, and my leopard pumps. And I walk in, and they're like, oh my God, who has just arrived? Well, it ends up, we did change the look of Sears. I did all copper ceilings, mahogany cabinetry. We did brass railings. We did marble floors. I would bring a grand piano in on the weekends, and I convinced them also that I needed to be in charge of the music for the store and that we needed some good jazz.
But this is fascinating. I have a really quick observation / I want to get your thoughts, both of your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Do you think you would have gotten that job had you walked in not being Sherry Black? Meaning not stylish, not dressed the way you were dressed, because the way we show up is attracting certain things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you attracted this opportunity. How much do you think your style played in that?
100%. Personality was let's say 50-50. No, it was probably 80-20. And that is what it is. That's why she made the comment, we don't get many people like you, which scared me because it had been night all day long, in the winter. We got there when it was 50 below zero. From Hawaii to 50 below zero and a 9-foot polar bear at the bottom of the escalator.
I remember that polar
bear. It was hell. I was just like, where has he brought me? It's frozen. Hello.
It was kind of hell. I'm not going to lie.
It was. I never unpacked. I mean, but anyway, I did help change the look of Sears. That was it was a great opportunity that I had. And from there, when we ended up only staying in Alaska for a year, and we ended up moving to Raleigh, closer to my parents at the time. And my brother convinced me to open 2 restaurants. Why I did it, I don't know. But I thought, oh, this will be so much fun. I can decorate these 2 restaurants.
I had opened a restaurant just so you could decorate them.
Oh yeah. Well, that wasn't the only reason, but my brother wanted me to sell my cheesecakes because I make really good cheesecakes, which I've never made since we left Hawaii. And I never even made in the restaurant.
But we had a great cheesecake.
Oh my God.
You may not have made it.
So what I did was, when we got to Raleigh, I didn't know anybody in Raleigh. And within 2 months, I was signing contracts with Smedes York from Cameron Village to open 2 restaurants in the city market in the most famous part of Raleigh. And so I came up with this concept. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a coffee house tea room combo, and then I'm going to have a restaurant and the bakery in the center. And the bakery and the restaurant will feed both sides. So I end up doing this. I end up finding people in Durham that roasted coffee, but he was also head of Encore magazine. And he ended up, after being with me for a month, he's like, I'm going to do a review on your restaurant before you ever even open. And he goes, we have never done this in the history of the magazine. And it ended up being the cover and 2 full pages inside that they interviewed me before we ever even opened. And because my concept is that I wanted people to walk in and love the food and the atmosphere so much that they didn't want to leave, which in the restaurant business is not a good thing because you need to flip those tables. So it ends up where I end up with 25 employees. We start winning design awards for the interior. I won 2 years in a row because on the 3rd year I sold it. We sold in 2 days, which was the fastest real estate sale in Raleigh at the time. And people were trying to buy it before I ever even put it on the market. And I had brokers that were trying to buy my concept because nobody had ever done a coffee house tea room combination. And I was like, how would this, I didn't take them seriously. This is before Starbucks came to the East Coast. Starbucks was still in Seattle, but this is how I came up with this concept. By living in Alaska, I would go to Seattle to keep my sanity and do buying for the store. And that's where I fell in love with the whole coffee house concept.
Yeah.
So as soon as we moved to Raleigh, I was like, okay, I'll do it. And we did it. I mean, it was so beautiful and so cool. And like I said, when we finally decided to sell, it sold in 2 days. And then we end up coming to Wilmington. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And look at you now.
I know. And so after I sold that, came back here, I ended up working in the movie industry for 2 years. And then I took a year off. And then I was like, I'm going to go into interior design full time. So I ended up getting a job with the most successful architect probably in America at the time. And they interviewed me, and then we went on a walkthrough and on the couple of properties that he was working on. Michael Moorfield at the time. He ended up getting very sick, and it's not working any longer. But anyway, I went with them on these walkthroughs, and I was like, it seems like going down the hallway, these sconces are off a little bit, because you, like, in interior design, the details are, to me, are the most important things in a house, whether it be your air register vent cover, your light switch plate cover, your faucets, your light fixtures, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it ends up where we did this walkthrough, and she goes, no, she goes, I'll have to measure again. Sure enough, it was off. So we end up leaving, going back to the office, and they were leaving to go to Charleston that weekend. And they said, when we get back on Monday, be here at the office to start. I was so excited. I quit my movie job, and I walk into the office on Monday, and they said, Sherry, we've been talking about it. They go, after we worked with you on Friday, and your question to us, how many projects do you have going on right now? They said, we didn't really know. And over the weekend, we went over all our projects, and we have over 13 projects going on at the same time, because they had just not put them all in one bowl. They were just doing a project, then a project, not realizing how much they had on their hand. They said, we feel like if we add an interior design office to our business right now, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And I was like, well, you just shot me in the wallet. Like, I didn't say that to them, but I was devastated. And I can remember walking outside in the middle of Front Street, and I started crying because it was early in the morning. Nobody was there. And I raised my hands. I was like, God, what am I going to do? Like, I have 2 children. I have no job right now. And I just thought I landed the job of a lifetime. And it ends up the same week, somebody else called me. And then I just started getting project after project after project. And yes, there were some failures in the list of projects I had going on at the time, but there were also huge successes. And I ended up meeting one woman, and Dee Dee Shaw, that owns Monkeys.
Yeah.
And from Monkeys, I started designing all the monkey stores. I started designing all of her houses and their hunting lodge and the farmhouse, and then their friends wanted it, and it snowballed. But had I not been fired, well, I wasn't fired. I was barely hired at Michael Moorfield's architectural firm. Had I done that, thinking that was going to be the greatest pinnacle in my life, because I can do design for people that actually have money and aren't on a budget.
Yeah.
And it ends up, God gave me those clients, but I would not have gotten them had I stayed with Michael.
Yeah.
I just took a risk. And that's another thing in business. You have to take risk in order to see, like, for things to come to fruition. If I didn't take a risk and say, you know what, I'll take this one job, see where it takes me, and then, pray to God something else came, rolling in on the next thing. It just always has. I'm not saying that I'm the luckiest person in the world, but that's how God is. That's just what's happened in my life. But it's from reputation. It's like I work very hard for my clients, especially when I get to be with them when we're working on a project. That when you're far away, it's very difficult sometimes. But I can just say that had I not had failures in my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. Like, now I'm designing furniture, and we're doing huge jobs. We've done tons of restaurants, and my next thing is a hotel, and we're traveling to India working on furniture designs now when she's working on her handbags. I've got an incredible manufacturer who's become family to us, who is going to be making furniture for us and sending antiques in for us to sell here in America and around the world. So anyway.
What's interesting though, and I always tell clients this, I'm like, the problem is if you think you know the how, you're going to be disappointed, because probably that how isn't going to be how you ultimately do it.
Right.
If you think, if you thought this architect firm was going to be how you had an interior design career,
Right.
and then that failed, or you didn't even get started, it sounds like, you
Yeah.
never really got the job, then you're screwed because you're like, now I have nowhere to go. But if you realize, and I love what you were saying, Carmen, like everything is a stepping stone,
Yeah.
even the failure. And I know sometimes, like if you're in the middle of a failure, it may not seem like it, but on the other side, you're looking back, you're like, oh, that thing had to have happened in order for me to be where I am today.
Well, let me back up a little bit. So when that happened with Michael, I was like, what in the heck? What am I going to do? And so while we were in Raleigh, in the city market, or it's like a village. It's all these tiny little stores, and then a huge restaurant, big as, and then art space, which is an art gallery. And I end up meeting this woman, Susan Warlick, who was a professor at NC State, and she taught art, but her focus was on faux finishing and restoring castles and frescoes throughout Europe. That's what her specialty was. And people would fly her to England, to France, all over the world to restore frescoes, because, in Europe, you'll see all the artwork on the stone walls or inside castles on ceilings, on the walls. And so she would be the person that they would call to do one of the people to do restorations. And she just happened to have her workshop in
the city
market in Raleigh. So she came to me because we used to give them food and coffee for free. And she came and she says, would you like me to help you with your walls? I said, yes, I have this vision. I want them to look like red leather. And she's like, I've got it, because I'm going to teach a class and we'll use your restaurant for the wall. We'll use your walls for our template. So they came in to get that one color. It started out orange, then purple, then a brown, a raw umber over it to get this amazing red. Whereas most of the time people would probably go to Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, put red paint on the wall and pray it looked like leather, little brown. It's like, so true faux finish. If you're a purist about it, it really is like mixing
pigments or something.
Yes, pigments and oils and thinners and stuff. So I was a purist about it. So anyway, I got really good at faux finishing. So when I lost that job with the architect, or it didn't start, I was like, oh my God, well, maybe somebody needs faux finish work. I walked in this boutique, which ended up being my store. I walk in, it was an interior design firm, and this girl just fell in love with me. And she goes, look, because I said, if you ever need any faux finish work, she goes, well, I work with this guy from this company called V5 Faux. And he goes, he's looking for help. And I said, oh my God, I can help him. So my first job, so he comes in, interviews me. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, you work with one of the best in the nation. Like Susan was incredible. And he knew about her. And he's like, yeah, I'll hire you. If you worked with her, I'll definitely hire you. So the first job was the Mattress King family in Greenville, isn't it?
I remember you doing this house.
Yeah. They were in their 30s and they were building this 10,000 square foot house.
Was it in Landfall?
No, this is in Greenville.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, I don't remember.
Near ECU. And he's a huge ECU guy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So anyway, I ended up getting this job, and because I wasn't working with Michael Moorfield. So I ended up doing this faux finish thing, and that ball started rolling. And then that's when I met Dee Dee. And I told Dee Dee, I said, Dee Dee, I'm not really a faux finisher. I'm a designer. And I said, but nobody knows me since I've moved back to Wilmington. And I said, I'm starting from the dirt up. Yeah. And she goes, well, I like your dirt. And so she says, well, I'm going to give you your first job, in here. Because I'd started in Hawaii, remember? So I end up getting that job. And had I not taken a little trail, gone off the trail just a bit with the faux finish work, but at the time that was a huge trend. So I was very successful with that. Yeah. And so And then the interior design job started rolling in, and it's just never stopped.
Yeah.
All those years later. That's really interesting because I call
Yeah.
that like experience stacking, or you can call it skill stacking, where
Yes.
you don't understand it at the time, how it's all going to fit together. But there will be a moment where you look back, you're like, oh, this is why I met this woman and I learned about faux finish, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I have two more questions before we wrap up, because I'm thinking about two types of women. We have women who may have creative ideas, they're entrepreneurs, they're really wanting to start a stylish career. And to me, a stylish career is any career that uses creativity, which we could argue all of them do. What advice would you give to a woman who is at the beginning of this journey, who's like, I have a really great idea, but I don't really know how to get started, what to do? What would you tell them? From two women who really started with just ideas, who didn't have the formula of how to do this, but you figured it out on your own. What advice would you give those women?
For me, the first thing would be to learn how to create a budget, learn in interior design, most people think, oh, the most exciting thing is picking stuff out and making things look beautiful. When in reality, interior design is really a lot of paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of cancellations. It's a lot of shipping issues. It's a lot of, the company telling you that the product is in stock when it really isn't in stock. And then they'll tell you it's on a boat, it'll be here 6 weeks later instead of when they told you it was going to be at the first time. So for me, if somebody out there is interested in interior design, the most important thing to me, number one, is to learn the business side of the business before you start picking out the pretty things. Because it is a lot of paperwork. There are weeks, sometimes months, I never leave my desk to go look. When I first started and I was doing small little houses, I would go to, all the stores in town to look for things. After opening accounts with all the manufacturers directly, I never walk in a store anymore. I deal with everybody that either I met or have accounts with at market, or companies that I've, come into contact with around the world. And so I go directly through them. At this point in my career, rarely am I ever in a store or a store.
That's such great advice, because I think when you are creative, you just think about the creative part. It's like, I can't wait to design. I can't wait to pick out all of the things, but there's also the business side that if you don't learn that,
you can do pretty houses and make money from month to month. But when you want to make real money, the business side is the most important thing. And also, a lot of people may have gone to school for interior design. And I'm not putting that down. I never graduated from design school. I took, when I was at NC State, I was majoring in Japanese, but I would go to the interior design classes. So but then I started getting work. So I was like, I'm already working, so I'm not going to finish. And luckily it worked out for me. Not to say that school isn't important, but I think on another thing is that you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, I think that's what I would ask somebody.
Yeah.
If we're talking about somebody that is not even in business yet, and they're like, oh, I just have this idea, I want to do this. I think for me, my first question would be, why do you want to start your own business? Like, why?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that question in a minute can tell us whether or not you'll succeed. So whatever your motivations are, I think determines the level of success that you're going to have. And I think too, if I had to meet somebody that said, I want to start a creative,
design handbags.
I want to design handbags. Yeah, I mean, definitely the first question would be, but why do you want to design handbags? And there's no right or wrong answer necessarily, except to say, if someone says, well, I just want to be really rich and famous, like, that's the wrong reason to start a handbag company. And I cannot guarantee you'll ever become rich or famous. So, and then I think too, it's just, I would want to understand, like, what's your level of like resiliency? Like, how comfortable are you with being told no, or you're stupid, or your ideas are weird, or knowing for a fact that everyone around you, not everyone, but a lot of people around you, including those closest to you, are always talking trash about you. Like, it literally is just
Not
happening.
us.
Yeah, no.
Not us.
But I mean, it's happening, and you have to have, maybe you don't have to have an awareness of that, but if I tell you, like, hey, it is going to happen to you, how comfortable are you with that? You know, and if somebody can answer these preliminary questions with, listen, I don't care, I've got it, I'm going to rise to the top, I'll go through, I can put up with anything, withstand anything, overcome it all. Girl, you've got it. Now the rest is just, let's figure out what you want to do and how to fit the puzzle pieces together. But if all of those things, if a woman or man, I guess, said, oh, I don't want to deal with that, or that scares me, or I need a steady paycheck or whatever. Yeah, probably not the best idea to go into business.
You may not be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you may be awesome and very talented, but you may not be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, that's such great advice, because I believe when your why is big enough, we can teach resiliency.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a skill you can learn. And if your why is big enough, you're willing to go through all of it.
Absolutely.
But if you are creative and you just want to focus on that and you don't want to deal with all of the BS of being an entrepreneur, maybe the best fit for you is to work for someone else.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yes. And those people are so needed. Oh my gosh, they're so needed. All of us have special skills and talents that are needed. And in big ways and in small ways. Every single person is wired for success. Every single person is not wired for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Some of us,
And what's successful to one woman may look totally different than what success looks like for another.
And my opinion, okay, and I don't know if the two of you will agree or disagree, and no offense to any of us, but I believe that entrepreneurs make really horrible employees. Like, really, really bad. I'm a terrible employee. I cannot.
You are?
Yes.
I just always want to be in charge. If I'm working for somebody else,
I want to be in charge.
I keep climbing up, and it's better I just work for myself.
Yeah, you challenge the status quo. We don't like being there every single day in a routine manner. We need a lot of space for creative thinking. This is not good for the corporate environment. So, you know, it's just, we're all wired differently, and we all are wired for success, but what it is to one person shouldn't be what it is to every person.
Right. Right. And thank goodness. That's what makes the world such a beautiful
I know.
Totally.
It really does.
Yeah.
So that was one part of the question. The other part of this question is for the women who are in what they may consider to be a non-stylish job, meaning they're not in art, design, but they're going to an office, or maybe they're a stay-at-home mom and they are working, but they want to bring style into their careers. What would you suggest for them?
Everything, every moment, every interaction in your life can be chic and stylish.
I say start with your hair, get a cute little hairstyle going on.
I say start with your inner man. Have joy no matter where, no matter what. Find the fun, the creativity, the joy, the life in it.
Some people need better hair to have some joy. So I think if you feel good about yourself, you are going to be more joyful.
I definitely do agree with that. I definitely do agree with that. When you look better, you feel better.
Even if you don't have money to say buy a new wardrobe, make sure the wardrobe you do have is like pressed and clean. And
I can't believe this.
No, I'm just telling you. Here, let's start this one. No, I'm telling you that the way you feel about yourself, like if I look good in my clothes, I'm going to feel better at my job. Or if my hair looks horrible, if it's all, if I have a horrible hairdo every day, you're not going to feel as confident I'm telling
It's
you,
100% true. And I definitely agree with you. But I
the
think
days you walk in the office and you go, I look at you and I go, what were you thinking? Like, if you come in from your
that's because my
exercising,
inner self feels beautiful.
I'm like, you're making my vibe. You're bringing my vibe down. No,
Okay. It's a mix of internal and I think if internally we can find creativity and life in any moment,
okay.
any
Let's take away from personal. Say you have an office job and you do want to feel more fashionable.
say you're a bank teller.
No, you work in an office
Okay.
for
I'm just saying
Google. You work for somebody.
no, that's very exciting. No, that
I
office.
love this mother-daughter interaction.
Okay, you work in an accounting office.
Okay, that's
Okay, perfect. Let's go with accounting office.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, all those accountants out there, God knows we need you.
Yes.
But maybe bring flowers to sit on your desk.
Have a beautiful space, have a beautiful desk, have beautiful surroundings, love your flooring, situate yourself so that you can see out a window.
Well, if they're at a cubicle, they're at a cubicle.
Okay.
Just fresh flowers, number one,
Totally.
are going to make you feel it'll make you feel happier when you sit at your desk.
Mhm.
But to look good as
I do
well
think
is
so.
going to make you feel much better at work.
It is.
You're killing me.
No, it's 1,000,000% true. Have a joyful attitude. So you bring life into the room just by your very presence.
Yeah.
And then if you are working in a cubicle, which many brilliant people do.
Look at The Devil Wears Prada.
Exactly.
When she first started working, when she started dressing, I mean, yes, she went through her little jealous friends, but she
was brought to light.
Yeah.
It is important.
Yeah.
I just think there was something about what you were saying about maximizing earlier, like maximizing everything that happens. To me, this is a concept of maximizing who you are and what you have. And it doesn't matter where you work, what you do. It's like, how do you bring your biggest essence into that space? And how do you create the space so that it represents that and it's mirroring it back to you, whether it's flowers, whether it's maybe you got some soft jazz playing in your office, but really creating the space that is giving you that feedback of like, this is who I am. I don't care if I'm in an accounting office or if I'm even working as a nurse. Let's think about that because that's where I would put my lipstick on. I was doing the best I could with what I knew at the time, but I always was thinking about how do I express myself in these scrubs?
Yes.
There are always opportunities. It requires you to be creative.
Right. It does. And you know what? I really feel, and the older I get, the more I believe what I'm about to say. We all have the power to basically dictate the mood in the room.
Mm-hmm.
All of us. People don't think they do, but we all have the power to either add life and value and joy and fun and creativity just by our mere presence, or suck the life right out of it. Because my grandfather was just in the hospital, and some of the nurses that come in made the room feel bright and fun and joyful and lovely. And some of them made it feel like we were in a nasty hospital room, which we were indeed in. And so I just think it is this mix. You're saying, funny things, and I know you're a person of depth. So it's just funny the things that you're saying. Like, it does really matter how you're exhibiting what you believe about yourself on the exterior. But at the same rate, if you can also be that vibrant, beautiful person on the interior, this is like a really powerful mix.
No, that is very important. But you could take a woman who has never really gone to a salon. Maybe she's gone to cut her hair herself or gone somewhere. When she has that first haircut, that somebody that really knows what they're doing, she sees that person in the mirror that is so different than the person that walked in to have the first haircut. It does make a huge difference. You see, she walks with her shoulders, back, her head's higher. She's proud of how she looks versus walking in feeling frumpy and not put together. Not that you have to be put together all the time. You can still look chic in your workout clothes, a cute little ponytail and put on some lip gloss. And you've changed the whole vibe of, and then add a cute purse even with that. And it changes how you feel around other people as well when you feel good about yourself.
Listen, I love you. And Sherry thinks we should all get our hair cut. Go find a great haircut, which I think you're 100% correct. It can change how you feel about yourself. And I love what you said, Carmen. It's about, like, to me, style starts on the inside.
Right. It's true.
It's like, that's where it starts. Like, even the way you walk into a room, the way you greet people, the way you communicate, it's all a part of your style.
Absolutely.
And so I think we all need to ask ourselves, are we showing up in a way that really represents who we are at the core? And for some of us, that means getting a new haircut. I just got mine cut. Do you?
It looks good.
You like it?
Really
looks
good.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to get the Sherry approval.
Yes,
He's like the hair connoisseur.
You look very chic.
He really is.
Awesome.
You really are.
All right. We're going to wrap this up with 3 questions that I have for each of you. This is going to be like a rapid fire.
Okay.
Because at the School of Self-Image, we have 3 pillars. We have mindset, style, and environment, our surroundings. So the first question for you, Sherry, what's one thought you wish you could gift to everyone?
Don't get caught up on the small things that you may feel are holding you back.
I love it. Don't get caught up on the small things. What about you, Carmen?
Oh, okay. What was the question?
What's one thought you wish you could gift to everyone?
I genuinely believe anything is possible. Anything is possible. Anything. So if you'll believe it, it is.
So good. So good. Okay. This is around style. If you had to wear one outfit for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I know.
I wear it every day. I wear all black every day. I work with so much color that after 10 years, black's just my thing. So
that's part of your signature style.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you in anything but black with a bright red lip and your wrist full of bangles.
Yep. That's my style.
I love it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Great perfume.
Great perfume. I would wear a black, I would wear also black, but a black slip dress and a cashmere sweater over my shoulders.
Or
Chanel? Like a blazer?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love a Chanel blazer. My God. I mean, hey, let's upgrade if we have to wear it every day for the rest of our lives. I love a blazer. I always have loved a blazer. Blazers are good for me.
I know. I looked at both of you.
Yeah,
it's like
you
black
look
and
like
white.
you're in Chanel. I always love bold prints and bold colors and bold this and everything. And I love that. And then when I look at myself in photos, I'm like, oh God.
No, you look beautiful.
See, I think the more simple, like the more Japanese level simplicity that I wear, the better I look.
Yeah.
So the more you feel like yourself.
Yeah. I do. And I think that I do. I really feel like myself. So that I would do a slip dress and either a really great blazer or a cardigan over my shoulders. And that's good to go.
Okay. Last question. This one is about your environment. If your home was a person, how would you describe their personality?
Oh my God. If my home were a person, it would probably be.
Your home would be Iris Apfel. And I know
Apfel.
I mean, I know she's not saying a specific person, but like actually her home, the way that Iris Apfel always looks super chic, but it is extremely gaudy. And gaudy, like the design, like the architect gaudy, like layer, everything, more is more. That's her house.
So maximalism. I love it.
The most,
but it's
beautiful.
It's curated. I love modern furniture, but I also have Louis the 14th and a few art. I have artwork from wall to wall, ceiling to ceiling, floor to ceiling, wall to wall.
Would you say the personality is bold, vibrant, eccentric? Like, how would you describe?
I would say eccentric. eccentric, but still with simplicity. I will tell you, when I go home, I don't want to leave. I
Mom,
love it.
There is
so
no
much.
simplicity. There's zero simplicity.
To me, it gives me air.
It does give you air, but there's no.
For her, it's very simple.
Her home is an absolute reflection of who she is as a person. Nothing is simple.
Hey, look, this is going to be
Yeah,
fun.
show her your purse today. This is great.
Oh, let me see the purse.
Oh, just wait.
Oh, how adorable. What is that, like a half basketball?
It's
Yes, I thought it was a glitter basketball, but it's not. I was like, I'm going to tell Tonya I brought my change purse.
I love it.
This one, and I have on my black Gucci loafers and just all black. And this is my pop of color.
I love it. So good. What about you, Carmen? Because we are in your house right now.
You're in my
Well,
house.
you're in your house. I'm looking at it.
Exactly. What is mine?
I would say your house is chic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like a hotel.
A great hotel.
Like a boutique hotel.
A boutique hotel. My home feels like a boutique hotel.
It does.
And it's interesting because when I travel, I only typically stay. I mean, I wouldn't mind the Ritz, but I only typically stay in really cool, like
boutique hotels.
Lovely. But I like things that are lovely. Like I want to walk in and every single detail, every nook and cranny, floor to ceiling has been thought of. That's how I like to live. And that is definitely how I live.
Right.
Yeah. So
Lovely.
yeah,
Thank you both. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can learn more about you?
You go first.
You can find me on Instagram at Carmin Black, the brand. My first name is spelled Carmin. And you can also find me on carminblack.com.
And you can find her products, her handbags at Magnolias.
At magnolia.com. Just type in Carmin Black.
And new ones are coming. They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at Sherry Black Designs and Sherry Black, Sherry with a Y, and info at sherryblackdesigns.com. And I promise I can change your life for the better.
Thank you all. I love you so much. Wasn't that fun? I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I loved catching up with my cousins and talking about what goes on behind the scenes. I think we're so used to seeing people's successes, and we don't often get to peek behind the curtain to hear about all of the failures that people go through. And as it relates to style, style is all about creativity. And we can be creative in how we approach those failures. And I loved what Carmen says, using them as stepping stones to what's next. So after we finished up the interview, we kept chatting for like another hour. So much fun catching up. And there was a moment where Carmen shared something that I thought, gosh, I wish that was in the interview. And I realized we were still recording. And it all came out of her obsession with Mr. Rogers. And so I'm going to share that with you because I think it'll be very, very insightful. And I cannot wait to see you on next week's episode. So here it goes.
So I've developed this obsession with Mr. Rogers. Okay. And the reason I'm obsessed with this man is because I just have started studying his life, his values, his career, his family relationships, and the man had it figured out. He didn't have, everything wasn't great in his life. Like he had a very tumultuous relationship with one of his sons who I just went to Nantucket, and they say that this son, even to this day, is actually very challenging to get along with. So it's no surprise that Fred Rogers would have had that same experience, even though it was his kid. But he says this thing that I just have like really started to adopt. He says, I am convinced that deep and simple is so much better than wide and complex. And it's kind of like what we were all just talking about privately, that, you know, I think when you're younger, you want breadth and you want to spread your wings and you want your tent stakes to be wide and friends and the events and the thing and the blah, 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 you know, success. And I think now what I've found is success can still be very deep and very, very simple. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of things and opportunities and friends and events and whatever, you can still find success, and much better long-term sustainable success when it happens in a simple way and when there's a lot of depth to it. That's what I'm doing now. And so your question was, well, how does that manifest in my life? For me, that manifests now with me saying no a lot. I say no to opportunities, for example, that can make a lot of money. And so what I do is I break down my business into basically like pillars. And so I'm like, first pillar is most important. Then I've got my next two pillars, which are pretty darn important. And the last pillar is filled with a bunch of stuff that at any moment that I need to, I can cut any one of these things.
What are your pillars? Can you share?
Well, I mean, it's very specific to mine. So, other people would have to make it as specific, but one is CVS, one is Magnolia, one is QVC. These are my most important pillars right now.
Yeah.
So CVS, 2,000 stores, check, gotta have that. Magnolia, very awesome opportunity. If this grows, who knows what this could morph into, gotta have that check. And then QVC, I'll be on QVC in February.
Oh, that's exciting. Have you watched the movie or the show Hacks?
No, do I need to?
You must watch the show immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, she's on CBS. That's why she's always showing her things on CBS.
She's on QVC
or QV. Yeah,
QVC.
That's
Okay.
It's Hacks.
Hacks. Okay.
It is a brilliant show. Brilliant.
Okay.
The writing is so good.
Oh my God, I'll probably learn a lot from it. And then then my fourth pillar are a bunch of random things. So things like jewelry design, and there's this company I could possibly do something with there. That I could take or leave, even though it's a great opportunity. T-shirt design, my own handbag line. Should I expand my own, website and sell wholesale and all this stuff? Or should I just chill on the fame and the fortune and CVS, QVC, Magnolia?
That's huge.
No, they are huge, but it's like there's a temptation because Magnolia, I'm designing against their wants. QVC, I'm designing against their wants. My own line, my God, this could be anything and everything, and it could be so cool. But is it really going to be sustainable, make the most money, and will it be the most simple? No, it's so complex.
Does it bring you peace?
No,
Then don't do it. If it doesn't,
it does bring me peace in a way, but it's a very complicated the fashion industry is very complex without the large customer base that has that constant demand.
Yeah.
So and there's a few other little projects.
I love that though. Deep and simple will beat out wide and complex.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rogers, that's how it
because I will tell you, like, my desires have changed, as we were just talking about. Like, all the events, being here, being there, I just don't want any of that anymore. I want to focus on my main. I mean, I didn't realize there were pillars, but I have like 3 main things that I want to be focused on.
Me too.
Yeah,
me
that's
too.
it.
And they say, okay, who was it? Margaret Thatcher? Or there was something, I know it might not have been Margaret Thatcher, but it was, or maybe it was Estee Lauder. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look, but it was 3 main goals in life every single day and no more per day than 6 important to-dos. You can't really accomplish in a day more than like 6 things. And so if we could all just grasp, you really can't.
Yeah.
You just kind of start fumbling around. Now, if you've got a big team and you can delegate, okay. But I mean, you've got to have like 6 things you're delegating, even if they have 100 things beneath them. But 3 main goals and objectives, 6 good solid to-dos per day is like the recipe for success.
Yeah.
And
I just had this conversation with my team because we have this other thing that we could be doing. And I was like, no, like we have these projects, like all eyes on this. Like this is something we can do later, but it's just going to be a distraction. It's not aligned with where we want to go this year. And you know what's interesting in the membership, I have members choose 1 goal for the year, just 1.
Oh, wow.
And it needs to be a goal that is going to demand enough of them that they need to change their self-image.
What have some of their goals been?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's everything. It's some's around health, some are around relationships. Some women are like, I'm going to write a book this year. Some are like, I'm going to meet the love of my life this year. Some are, I'm going to make my first 100,000, my first million this year. It's like all over the board. But it's important that it's a goal that aligns with their soul, not a should goal, but a goal that's like, wow, this is something that I have wanted, but I've been afraid to want. Right. And it has to be something big enough that they're going to have to change their identity in order to create it. I mean, because you think about how your identity has had to change to create what you've created.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, my identity changed as of yesterday. Listen, I was putting this vision board together, and my husband, I said, listen, I want us to share this vision board, not because we're the same person, but I'm like, look, I want us to see visually how our visions align. And thank God they align very effortlessly. But there was this one picture, this beautiful picture of this house on a hill and this massive pasture with like 50 horses. And I said to Zeth, I said, I can't imagine owning 50 horses. Can you? He says, yes, I can. And I said, I love that. I said, but I don't know what it is. I said, I just know the amount of stable hands you'll have to have, the amount of stable stalls, the hay, the
Cleaning.
field, the cleaning. I said, I understand logistically what it takes to have 50 horses. And I know the amount of money it would take to support that, just for leisure and pleasure. And I said, Zeth, I just can't imagine it. He goes, that's exactly why we need to have this picture on this vision board. And I said, right. And so it is that thing of constantly stretching yourself. And it's like that idea of like a choke on like a
bridle.
No. Yeah, on a bridle as well. Or like on a dog leash, where it's like, I can imagine having 3 horses, but I choke at 50. Or I choke at 4, I guess.
Would you want to have 50?
I mean, really, no. I don't really want to have
Will's
50
family
horses.
has a horse farm.
But I don't want to have the limited mentality that says I could never have that. I can never imagine that. I want to at least imagine it and be able to sit, or one day have the option to say, nah, that's not for me. But I don't want to be the person that says, like I was yesterday, I could never imagine that. But now
that's so good, because I think you have to have the ability to at least imagine it to be able to decide, is this a good goal for me? Before we part ways, I have an exciting invitation for you. If you have been desiring to elevate your style but find yourself stuck, unsure, or overwhelmed, I've created something very special just for you. Join me for a private 12-week podcast series called Why Don't You?, where we're going to dive deep into personal style, confidence, and self-expression. It is an intimate journey designed for the discerning woman who knows she's capable of more, but needs that extra guidance and inspiration. And just so you know, this isn't about fleeting trends or rules. It's about discovering and embracing your unique style story. So to access this private series, all you need to do is go to schoolofselfimage.com/why and secure your spot. And remember, true style is timeless and it starts with you. Why don't you join us and unveil the most stylish version of yourself?